I guess we start with the roll call.
Yes. Director Paul,
Here.
Director Anderson,
Here.
Director Edwards.
Here.
All committee members are present.
Okay. And I suppose we check to see if there are any members of the public on the call or on the Zoom.
Yeah, there's only one attendee, and it is a call-in.
Okay, so let's ask if there are any members of the public that wish to speak to the committee at this time.
Caller, if you have any comments for the board, please press *6 on your phone.
Okay, so no response. So let's proceed. We are there any corrections to the minutes of the last meeting?
Yep.
Okay, then I would like, I'll entertain a motion to adopt them, to adopt the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second. If you need
Okay.
one.
Do we need a roll call vote on this?
Yeah, I think everything in Zoom requires roll call, doesn't it?
Virtual meetings
Okay,
require.
then let's do it.
Chair Paul,
Yes.
Director Edwards,
Yes.
Director Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you. Okay, now we go to the treasurer's report. This is item 2, treasurer's report for March.
Yes, directors, this is the treasurer's report for the month of March. During the month of March, we wrote checks in the amount of $1,347,276. Now on, we would see most of the check runs each month are going to exceed $1 million, and that's simply because we are paying for the water purchase on the Pure Water Monterey project, and so that in itself is about $500,000-$600,000 a month, and so every month we would see checks written in the amount of over $1 million every month. This amount also includes $29,599 in rebate checks sent out to customers. Exhibit 2A, which is on page 7, is the actual treasurer's report. You will see our beginning balance. We started with little over $15.7 million in our bank. With all the checks written, the deposits for the month, we ended up with $16.3 million. And all of the breakdowns, as you can see, between the checking and money market, about $3 million. LAIF is about $10.6 million. We have about 2.8 in our multi-bank securities, which is basically our staggered CDs. And then on the far right-hand side column, we also report on our reclamation project. For that, in the bank, we had $480,000 for the month. And then Exhibit 2B, C, and D are basically the disbursement register for payroll, regular checks, and the rebates. And Exhibit D is the unaudited financial statements for the month of March. So I will take any questions if any board members have.
Thank you, Suresh. Yeah, I've reviewed it carefully, and because I'm still relatively new, I do have a few questions about who some of these checks are written to, and a couple of questions like that. So it shouldn't take long. So on the list of the check report, Exhibit 2B, what is your services solution?
That is our maintenance company that does all of the maintenance work on the building.
Okay.
And we had that bill there basically entails the painting of the awnings and also the painting of the sidings. Those all the way in dire need to get painted. We had started getting leaks into the building from the siding because the joints had kind of like given up. I mean, as long as I have been there over 10 years, I don't believe that was ever painted.
I'm glad you're taking care of the building. What is CSC? What
CSC
entity?
is the electronic recording company. So we pay CSC, we deposit into the account. And then what we do is when we do the deed records with a county, CSC does the electronic records for us.
Thank you. And what is the Water Awareness Committee?
That is the membership committee that the Water Conservation Department subscribes to.
Yeah, and it's joint with the county, Marina Coast Water District, others throughout the region.
When-
And just as a heads up, not in that report, probably not until the May treasurer's report, but we finally got the bill in for the November 2020 election. And it's 119,688. So that's what we paid for actually you and Amy, because
Wow,
I don't think anyone's ever
absolutely
paid that much for me.
no idea that the special districts had to pay their share of these costs.
oh yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know that either.
It was well under budget though. We had budgeted 200,000, and so it came in much less than what we had budgeted.
And also just wanted to highlight the staff note, the reason Suresh brought up the 29,000 of conservation rebates. We are currently paying for the rebates out of the district's pocket, waiting for the general rate case to be a final decision to be issued, at which time, well, not immediately, but after Caroline begins to collect from its customer bills the rebate surcharge, then we will be reimbursed for our out of pocket by that CalAm customer amount.
Mhm.
It seems like the 29,000 is kind of a common number and per month, somewhere in the 20,000 range. Is that,
Yeah,
that's a lot of people take,
yeah, it's usually between 15 and 25. So this was a good month, probably because of the heading into spring and people making purchasing decisions, but
I have
Okay.
one question. 725,000 plus for the Monterey Hospitality Association.
that can't be right.
Well,
No,
Yeah,
no.
which page? Let's go back.
oh, I'm down a line. Monterey One Water. Never mind.
Okay.
I couldn't see straight across. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions from board members on Exhibit 2B, the list of checks? 'Cause I have a
No,
couple of,
Go ahead.
okay, I have a couple for Exhibit D, revenues and expenditures. And under revenues, what capacity fees, what does that cover?
Right. So that, oh, go ahead, Suresh.
Go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just gonna say, when you come in for a water permit, a developer, an architect, or a homeowner comes in and let's say that there's an increase in your water footprint, and so you're going to cost the system an extra half an acre foot. We then charge, think of it as a connection fee to connect to the system or to be served the additional water from the overall system for your project. It's a cost of adding that incremental amount of new water into the system. So it's just a funding mechanism related to the issuance of the permit.
I see, okay. And a question under revenues, it's investment income. So I notice a big difference between this period this year compared to the same period last year in the investment income revenues. So what's the reason for that?
The interest rates were a lot better about a year from where we are now. So a significant portion of that is that. And also the amount of money sitting in our LAIF and our CD accounts have decreased over time between last year and this year. And also there are some interest money that has not been booked that will be coming in into the fourth quarter of this fiscal year.
Yeah, and I think the Pure Water Monterey purchases have decreased the amount of free cash that we've had invested.
Well, that and plus if the board remembers, we spent almost $5 million on the ASR treatment and
Yeah.
loading facility, so that's already pretty much gone. And then we had paid for the ASR facility, I mean, not ASR, but the Sleepy Hollow facility as well. And then some other Pure Water Monterey expansion costs. So 12 months between now and last year, there was a significant change in the cash balance. And then another big portion, like I said, is the interest rates. We were getting on our LAIF a little over 1% about same time last year. Now for this quarter, we're getting only about 0.35 or something like that.
Mhm. Okay, I figured that was at least one of the reasons. Thank you. And then down at the bottom of the page, on the bank charges, I see the bank charges are some, a little over $13,000 each year. So, which seems like a lot to me, but um,
So
is that the way it's? I mean, is it? It's a lot of money to pay for bank fees.
yeah, bank charges a fairly small portion in there. The biggest portion is the credit card fee. And so we have the credit card that we receive, and all of the fees are actually eaten by the district.
Uh-huh. Okay, they're not paid by the customers, huh?
They're not paid by the customer. We don't pass it through. No, it's actually, we kind of like consider them passed through the fee structure.
Okay, thank you.
On bank fees, have we decided, or how long we've been with Bank of America?
At least over 10 years.
Is it time to look around? I see you got this.
We did. The problem is not a lot of banks are offering public services now, public agency accounts. We looked at Rabobank, and now that's changed to Mechanics Bank. Last we looked at it was about maybe 3 years ago. We can definitely look into it again.
Oh, well, we got that new bank in Monterey now, out of
Bank of-
Santa Cruz. That's
Yeah.
one to look at. I was going to tell you to look at that one if you didn't get the signature cards done, but you got them done. So
Well,
good
signature
for you.
cards, yeah, it's out for distributed for signatures now.
Good for
It's a
you.
good
Good
idea.
job.
It's a good suggestion, though.
Yeah,
Maybe their
absolutely.
fees
We
would
saw
be
that
paid.
bank open up in Monterey. Yes.
Right. I was going to give you that one, but you got it done. Thank you.
Okay, those are my questions on this item. Any other questions from other directors?
No, you answer all mine with yours. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to recommend forwarding this to the board
I so move.
for approval.
I'll give you a second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Director Paul,
Yes.
Director Anderson,
Yes,
and Director Edwards.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you. Okay, let's go on to item 3. So receive and file the third quarter financial activity report for this fiscal year.
Yes, Director. So this is the third quarter report. This is report for the first 9 months. And I have summed up the details on the first 2 pages of the staff note. I'll draw your attention to Exhibit 3A on page 23. That basically captures the numbers comparing year-to-date budget versus year-to-date actuals for revenues and expenses. We are right in line where we normally are through the 9-month process. We have, like I said, we have captured the detail in the staff note for each line explanation as to what the actuals are made up of against the budget numbers. I can definitely answer questions that the committee members may have.
Thank you, and thank you for laying it out so clearly. At this point, I just have one very naive question, and that is, I was surprised. I mean, how come there are so many customers pulling permits when we're still subject to the moratorium? What's the explanation?
Right. Yeah, depending on where they live. So customers have been able to purchase entitlement water either within Pebble Beach or within the Malpaso area, which is primarily Carmel and Carmel Valley. There's been a few that have purchased Pacific Grove entitlement water, so they already have a meter. And then there's a lot of renovations in cities that have water that have been able to do, you know, a 1/10 of an acre foot remodel, where our permitting regime is a little bit different than what the state water board's view of the world is. And so while they recognize the Malpaso, the Sand City, and the Pebble Beach entitlements, they don't recognize some of the pumpers on the Seaside Basin and the city of Pacific Grove. So we go ahead and issue anyway. And so there's just a kind of a conflict there. Same thing with jurisdictional allocation. So if the city of, say Seaside, who has water, says, okay, we'll release some water to your project, Mr. Homeowner. We will go ahead and permit that. The state board doesn't necessarily agree, but they've got no real enforcement authority over existing meters. And so what's been happening is all the way through the CDO since 2009, we've continued permitting under our water neutral permit approach, which is you come in with plans. If your post-project has more water use than your pre-project, we have to say, well, where's that coming from? And it either comes from credit, entitlement, or a city's allocation. So we continue to issue permits for those purposes that either have a meter or are setting a meter based on a new entitlement that's been recognized. So stuff still goes on.
Thank you. I'm
Yep.
glad to understand that a little better. Do other directors have questions?
That was a good question. Yeah, I didn't understand where so the three options for assigning those permit fees are entitlement water, credit, or
Or a jurisdiction, yeah, cities,
cities that have.
have water left in their account, so to speak.
Yeah, thank you.
And would that be happening mainly in Seaside?
Up until recently, Monterey still had some water. They kind of ran out 6 to 9 months ago. A lot of entitlements from the Malpaso project were sold through Carmel and Carmel Valley. A lot that the buyers probably didn't even need, but we've seen a few of those come through. Seaside is the largest allocation that's still available. So yeah, a lot of them have been there, but Pacific Grove has come through. We've probably seen 6 or 7 projects in Pacific Grove. And, you know, it's just, it's a hodgepodge.
I guess one of them is the American Tin Cannery project.
Not yet. They have not come in for their water permit. So there is in every board report in the informational items way in the back, it's called, there's an allocation and entitlement report. So the allocations are what we call the jurisdictional allocations. And so you can kind of look at each city, and you could go back a year if you wanted to, and you could see which city's actually given out more of its water, because there'll be a change in condition every month. You know, there'll be a withdrawal from their account, if you will. And then the entitlements would be Malpaso, Pebble Beach, and those. And so going month to month or year to year, you can see who's been issuing water.
Thank you. If there are no more questions, do we have a motion to receive and file, or recommend to the board that we receive and file this report?
Go ahead. I think Amy, Director Amy gave the second, or did you do the motion?
I did.
Okay, you need a second, I'll second it.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Director Anderson,
Yes,
Director Edwards,
Yes,
Director Paul.
Yes,
Motion passes 3-0.
thank you. Okay, next item is to consider approval of the third quarter investment report.
So this is similar to the financial activity report. This is again for first 9 months through March 31st. And the 2 points to note on this is that the investments that we have on file basically are sufficient enough, has sufficient enough liquid funds to meet the anticipated expenses for the next 6 months. And then, so this is in compliance with our investment policy that the board looks at every year in January. And then this portfolio is also in compliance with the California Government Code. We are structured by the California Government Code. And again, those are all outlined in the investment policy that we bring to the board in January. So this is in compliance with everything that district has in place. And so if you go to Exhibit 4A on page 31, you will see that how our investments are staggered through different agencies. First one, of course, is the local agency investment fund. And it shows you what the par value is, and then also shows you what the market value is, and also what the annual rate of return on those are. So LAIF is the first one. Then you'll see we have the Bank of America, which is basically considered our operating accounts, which is the checking and the money market. And then we have the multi-bank securities, where basically we have the CD accounts, and then of course also a U.S. government bond account. And then towards the bottom, we have the report on the COD Pebble Beach Reclamation Project. Again, we report on the COD one because we do collect the revenue for them, and then we pass it on to Carmel Area Wastewater District. They handle all the operations on the reclamation project, but we do the billing on the revenue and the collection of the revenue. So that's why we are reporting on our reporting as well, but we just separate them.
So it's a service that the district performs for
Yeah.
the
Well,
Billing,
so-
yeah, the billing and collection.
Yeah, and the reason we do that is in order to perfect the security for the certificates of participation. Think of COPs, think of them as bonds. They're publicly offered instruments. We had to sell the actual water on an incremental basis. And so the security for the bonds are actually the revenues from water sales. And so we collect those revenues, but because all the costs and operations and maintenance and so forth are the responsibility of Carmel Area Wastewater District and Pebble Beach Community Services District, then we remit everything over to them, and then they will pay the O&M and then the debt payments when due. So it's just, that was a four entity project, if you include the Pebble Beach company as the fourth one. And we all have our little role. And so we are the seller of the water and the collector of the revenues to secure the financing. And while we're here, I wanted to draw your attention to the middle section that you can really reinforce the answer to an earlier question. So underneath the multi-securities bank securities, so where it says interest-bearing certificate of deposit, the first four are 3-year maturities from 2018 to 21. And they're all going to be coming due this calendar year. And you can see they were all in the 3 to 3.25%. Then you drop down to, just drop down two. There's one that we bought in February of 2020 that matures February of 2023, 1.8%. And so that's what's been happening is, we now have less money earning lower.
Lower earnings, lower money, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions on this item? Okay.
that's a lot more.
move to approve.
Second,
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Director Edwards,
Approval?
Director Anderson,
Yes,
Director Paul.
Approval.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay. Next item.
Yeah, so these two
Information.
are informational. Item 5 are all of the district open contracts over 25K. We will accept questions if you have them on there. They also include all of the Measure J contracts that are over 25K, which are separate in Exhibit 6. But I did want to highlight two items on Exhibit 6, 3 items actually. So let's take any questions on Exhibit 5, and then if none, we'll go to Exhibit 6.
On 5, for the next budget, we're going to make sure that we get all these numbers up to date. So we be clear on Measure J stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah, everything, all our contracts will.
Yeah, I hope everything be brought up where we know exactly where we at. No bills are held back, or tell all our vendors to get everything in because we're going into a new budget.
Yeah, keep in mind on Measure J, anything that hasn't already been approved will not be in the budget, because we're not going to project that the district, for example, will vote on a resolution of public necessity during the next fiscal year. So as you make discretionary decisions going forward, if there's a budget impact, we'll have to go find that money on Measure J, because we're not going to, assume that we're binding the district to making a decision.
Good.
Got it. Good, thank you.
So if we can then turn our attention to Exhibit 6,
Yep.
Measure J, I just want to highlight 3 things. What doesn't appear in here is LAFCO. And so LAFCO gets reimbursed for its time and costs by the applicant. We've already submitted $7,200. Through March and April, they've spent an additional, call it roughly $13,000 on their time. And they've asked for a deposit of $25,000. So that's a total new request of 38, which plus the 7,200 is basically 45,000. Hopefully that'll be enough to carry us through. But we need to add LAFCO now as a separate line item, which Suresh on the next report.
Well, what we're doing, Dave, is basically that money comes out of the contingency line.
Under line 8, yeah, I know.
Yeah, so what we do is we'll just split it out. Once the board takes action on that, we will split it out as a separate line item.
Yeah, because we're gonna need to see how much, I mean, it's becoming significant.
Yeah, the reason 1 through 7 is separated out because the board took action on each of those individual vendors specifically. And then we had the contingency line item as number 8, where basically it was the catch-all. But if the board is taking a separate action on LAFCO, then we will separate that out from the contingency now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. They are taking separate actions, for example, on the resolution that'll be on the board packet on the 17th. But as a contractor or consultant, I'm not sure we really have taken a separate action, but I just think it'd be useful to track LAFCO. Beneath the first chart, says little number 1, Measure J, CEQA litigation legal services. I just wanted to give you a heads up that has now heated up. There were opening briefs filed a week ago, and there will be reply briefs, I think, in another week. And so now those hours will start to accumulate. There's been very little spending to date. And then the third thing I had is actually, it'll come up on a later agenda item.
Okay, question from me. How do we update the board on things heating up, the costs? Is that a closed session, or is that public, that things are starting to roll?
Yeah, I think the 3 things that we have in mind, LAFCO, the CEQA litigation, and when we get to it, the PUC complaint, I think they're all public. at this point.
Okay,
And a little bit, like the November election expenses. It's more of a informational item, but it's the kind of thing that you kind of want to know. Maybe not everybody wants to know, but I think it's just important that, we've been carrying, some of these amounts with no actual spending to date. And people look at that and go, wow, we've got a huge unexpended amount. Well, now it's getting expended. So it's just, kind of expectation management. We can go through it. We can call attention to it at the board meeting.
yeah, can you do it in your report?
Yeah.
That would be good to do it in your report, so everybody know what's going on.
Yeah. Good to know, for people to know what things are costing and how their money is being spent.
Right. And with LAFCO, if we up that high, they need to show me something. If we have 45, they ain't showed me nothing yet. Besides we paying.
So these LAFCO costs are higher than we anticipated, aren't they? Yeah.
Yes. And it's because they're going to end up spending an extraordinary amount of staff time trying to sort through the application in a manner that doesn't make it even worse, even more time consuming, third-party consultants to, borrow your watch and tell you what time it is type of thing.
Dave,
So
we're not paying for that third party out of our funds already.
Well, we're
It
we're
sound like-
working on. Yeah, that's what Cal-Am's attorney's proposal was, that, and LAFCO doesn't have any money to do it, so they would very likely turn to us. But we've talked to them at length about the need for some of these things and why they shouldn't be viewed as a pacifier to make it all. I mean, it's a nerve-wracking process for some of these commissioners who've never seen something like this before. And so they are beginning to ask questions that both are out of LAFCO's purview, but are really interesting questions. And so you can't fault them for having an interest in knowing, hey, what's the most you guys can afford to pay? Well, we're not going to tell you. And we really don't want to pay for some third-party consultant to produce that answer.
Right. And I know Mr. Laredo on, so I hope we enforcing that we will not do that,
No, I hate to tell you that we may have to. We're trying to persuade them against asking it, but if they impose that as a condition, your only way you're going to get your application considered is by meeting their preconditions. So we are trying to educate them as to the difference between what's nice to know and what do they need to know. And I think that we have really made it very clear to them that we are willing to accept conditional approval. That if there is no acquisition, then there is no risk. It's just a question as to how much will the cost of the process be.
Okay.
And hopefully that will win the day. But Manat and Cal-Am are doing a full court press in terms of asking for information and studies that, quite frankly, will have no value, no continuing value. They'll be replaced over time.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, what I'm trying to get to is, can we go into court with that? They are asking questions beyond what they're supposed to. Can we use the judge to protect us, or can we go that way?
You don't want to sue the decision maker before they make a decision.
Okay. All right. Well, that's why.
Good answer.
Okay. Good answer.
All right, you want to move on to item 7?
Yes, please.
Seeing no hands up on the informational items, I guess. So item 7, I always like going to the graph. 7B is a good example. And boy, that looks and feels really good, but let me now burst the bubble on this graph. So the complaint to the PUC was just filed.
Mhm.
And so it's not reflected in the period shown here through the end of March. And so we are probably, and also there's still some rate case billings to be covered. I suspect we're going to finish the current purple fiscal year higher than last year's green fiscal year, and quite possibly higher than the other two prior years, maybe right below that $400,000 figure. Tom McBride, I think, has billed us once, and I suspect his total is going to be in the range of probably 40 to 50,000. And then the CEQA work with Shoot Mahali over Measure J, I don't think we're reflecting that here, nor the eminent domain attorneys are reflected here. But we've already had that discussion with both the AdCom and the full board and the members of the public who think that they all should be lumped together. And we tend to segregate them because of the nature of Measure J.
Well, don't some of
But
the
in other
costs,
words, we're doing well.
but some of those legal costs appear in the list of checks as well as broken out in the Measure J costs, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So
we
what
treat
goes-
Measure J, sorry, I was gonna say, we treat Measure J as a project, and so anything related to Measure J is kind of like tracked separately in a bucket.
Good.
Mhm.
Only partially off topic, do we, in the CEQA case, this is for you, Dave Laredo, do we still have a trial date for June?
Well, yes, we do. It's a hearing.
June,
I don't have that in front of me.
okay,
but I-
it's okay. We'll find out later. Okay, I was just checking. And for the CPUC complaint, we are waiting for the CPUC to,
The CPUC has not yet assigned an ALJ, and once the ALJ is signed, then CalAM will be given a response date to file an answer to the
complaint. Okay.
So Dave, once again, all this that we have owed up to when we start going into the new budget is going to be caught up, correct? Like McBride, all these back numbers are going to be moved forward so we can know where we're at.
Yeah, or what'll happen is anything that comes in after July 1st that actually applies to this current fiscal year will get billed back, so it won't be in the budget. But anything that we know we need that we haven't budgeted for will go into next year's budget.
Okay.
And the date of that hearing is the 22nd.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I remembered, but I don't trust my memory very. Okay, great.
Trust but verify.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Chair Edwards, Director Anderson, any additional questions?
No,
Okay,
Not for me.
you might want to ask the public. I see one out there. Just
Okay,
in
one-
case.
and does the member of the public who is on the call wish to make a comment to the committee?
Come on, John Tilley, we haven't heard from you for a while.
That's why
Okay,
I brought it up. Okay, we can move along.
then I think we've gone through our agenda.
Just one point of clarification on the draft board agenda.
Mhm.
Hmm.
We will be moving out of consent
Oh,
item 5, which is a property tax consultant for Measure J LAFCO process, and that will
Yes.
become an action item.
Okay.
I was gonna ask that it be taken off consent. But if it's gonna be an action item, then I guess that means you've been working on possible ways to deal with the property tax issues.
Oh, yeah, and I'm probably one of the more unhappier people on the planet as a result, because we were told some things in very clear language from the county auditor controller, and then they reversed course, which, there's two issues right now. There's that one, and then there's a disconnect between the parcels we identified and what the total assessed value that the county has identified. And we're not really sure where that difference comes from. I have to imagine that things like the Monterey pipeline, which is an improvement. So when you're assessing parcels, you assess the land and the improvements. I'm imagining that an improvement that doesn't come with land, but comes with easements, or is in some city's road right of way, somehow gets assessed by the assessor, but we don't see it because there's no parcel with it. So we're trying to figure out what the difference, and it's, 50 million in total assessed value, maybe 60 million. So we shall see where it all leads, but hopefully we'll have an expert that will understand the two pieces that, I think we've erred on the high side anyway. So any of the work that we've done to date was conservative. The problem is the method of allocation has changed based on what they told us in January and what they're telling us as of last week. So, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did the best we could based on information we had, but it has an impact. It has not a large physical impact, but an optical impact. And so we just need to figure out how to address that. When the public taxing entities that are most affected include the county, and two of the members of LAFCO are county supervisors, we're going to have to get really good at what the story is and how we can protect that and so forth. So, which we will. We'll find a way. I think at this point, we're not meeting with LAFCO at the end of May. We're going to meet with them at the end of June. And they tend to shut down for July. So I think we're going to push pretty hard for a June meeting or a June update. Because then we would be pushed all the way into August for final approvals if we can. And I think this board would like to get started on deliberation of whether you want to move forward or not on an offer to buy. So.
Yes. Good. Well, we'll just work on that property tax issue as long as we need to.
Yeah.
Get it, find solutions. Okay.
And Dave, I don't know if you plan on adding another item for the LAFCO authorization to spend, because the previous one, I don't think it authorized us to spend more than 15 grand.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this one is because the first deposit we did was 7 grand, so that was within your authority, but
Right.
we happened to the Measure J. But now
So
it's
it's
over 15,000.
So
Okay.
is the resolution because of the need to authorize funding? Yeah.
It's just the board has to authorize anything over 15,000. Anything
I
below
see.
15,000 can go through GM authority.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. So we'll add that as an action item. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Let's
Yeah.
do as much as
Anything
we
else?
can.
Nope. I think we're set.
Okay.
Well, and then
Okay.
the last page on this draft agenda, which actually speaks to the May 27th budget workshop, the title on there says Monday, May 27th. It should say Thursday, May 27th. That's on page 57.
Where is this, Suresh?
Mine says,
On the second exhibit.
mine says Thursday.
No, it's actually the actual draft agenda.
Oh,
Oh,
Further down.
Future meetings. Yeah,
No,
you're
no,
right.
no, under future meetings, it's okay. But if you scroll further down, you have
Which
the
page
actual
are you
draft.
on?
Page 57 of the packet.
Okay. Thank you.
okay.
All right.
Thank you. Anything else? All right. Then we are adjourned, and Dave, you are free to
Gee, I have free time.
meet. Few coffee
Excellent.
All
break
right.
before talking with next meeting. Okay, thank you,
Have a
everyone.
good one. Thank you.